I'll turn myself off here. I don't think we need to see my face in class here, but here we go. And then hopefully you're just following along. You don't have to write all these words down. You got a lot of words in the notes. You know, the notes are online, so you can look at those words if you wanted. Blah, blah, blah. Just write simplified. Then we're going to go with this. When we get to the quadratic formula, the answers are going to look like this. So we got to know how to break it down. So, and again, I had this on the worksheet for radicals. So maybe off to the side, you take 176 and you start treating it out with a calculator. Kind of a big number, so maybe, we take 176 divided by 2 so we don't make any mistakes. And I think, what do we get, 88 on that? Hopefully mentally I can think of that number and be all right. All right, and then I already know what's going on. 88 is 8 times 11. The old multiply by 11 rule. 9 times 11 is 99. 6 times 11 is 66. So on and so on and so forth. And I'm going to stop right there. Hey, everybody, what's 2 times 8? Tell me. 16. What's the square root of 16, everybody? 4. So we know how to do that. Oops, sorry. Negative 14 plus or minus. I'll put it right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and write it like that. Square root of 16 times the square root of 11. That's why, I identify a perfect square, and I think it's the best way to break down numbers so you can simplify these radicals. So 16 is perfect square, 11 is not, so it's going to be in its own little radical there. And then you just set it. What's the square root of 16? 4. So this should not be a big deal what happens when we're simplifying. And then one more thing that you should do is maybe split these up into 2 separate fractions, so then you can reduce appropriately. All right, just want to make sure I have enough time to do what I want to get through today. I think we're good so far. 2 goes into both, so it's negative 7 over 9, and then 2 goes into both. 2 root 11 over 9. And that could be written as negative 7 plus or minus 2 root 11 all over 1 9. All right, and get used to, seeing answers that could be like that. And then real quick, just to reiterate, what's the square root of a negative? What do we have to have in my answer, guys? I. We wanted to introduce that because we wanted to get it done. Like solving quadratics, we could get imaginary solutions, and it's from old notes, like times when the graph does not cross the x-axis. So if you remember, right here, it's good. So if you remember that. So 56, I already know how to break that down. Square root of negative 1, that's the I. And then, I'm having a tough time here. 8 times 7 is 56, is that right? 8 times 7 is 56, kind of little, wait. So then it's 4 times 14. So I did 8 times 7, but then I took 4 out of this times 2 times 7. That's the only perfect square. So you see how I broke down 8? I did that in my brain there. So I know it's 8 times 7. None of those are a perfect square, but 8 has a 4 in it, 4 times 2. So it's 4 times 14 that you want to break this down to. If you wanted to treat it all the way out, that's fine. But I think the smartest thing and the most sensical to make it easy is just get the perfect square. The biggest perfect square in the product. And then you can break this down appropriately. 2, square root of 4 is 2. Root 14, I, okay, over 12. And again, square root of 4 is 2. And that just weird thing, somebody called the square root of negative 1i at some point. All right, and now everyone does the same thing. And hopefully you can get this. All of these are divisible by 2. So that's another way of looking at it. Or if I split this up into 2 fractions, that's exactly what would happen as well. So dividing all of these parts by 2 is another quick way of dealing with this. And then that would be the simplified answer for that with one denominator, kind of what I mentioned in the previous question. Okay, here's what I said about not writing all these words down. No way, don't write all those words down. I'm going to get it to the point. And the brass tacks of it is this. Write this down for a quadratic in standard form. You could also solve quadratics through what's called the quadratic formula. Now, where this comes from, I know this is like a magical little thing. Where did this come from? It comes out of nowhere. It actually comes from completing the square, but we didn't cover that right now. It might be a method or an idea that we cover later when it has a more practical use. So all I'm going to say is this. If you complete the square on this, then you get this magic formula that works, and you're just going to have to accept that. Back in the day, I used to cover how this happens and what it looks like, and it's kind of complicated. We kind of lose those things in the shortened environment that we have with e-learning. So you're just going to have to accept it, memorize it, and then be able to use it. This has to be memorized, okay? So make sure we do that. So here's our first one. Now, I've already made the video on Monday. We have an ed puzzle for, yeah, and you guys are Monday, not here, right? So there is going to be an ed puzzle that you're going to have to do. And it is reviewing all of the methods, what you just got quizzed on, plus the quadratic formula. And when to use which is what we're going to do on that. But we're going to do all of them with the quadratic formula, and then I'll talk about some things. So all of our examples today will do this, but is this factorable? Well, usually when you have a negative x squared term, that's kind of tough. So we're going to just go ahead and do the quadratic formula on this one and not even look at if it's factorable. Then I'll tell you about it after we get an answer for this. So first things first, I hope you understand A is -2. B is -3. Students often miss the minus signs and don't give the appropriate B value. And C is 9. Now, if I didn't give you enough time, here it is again. The opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Anyone want to sing with me? No? All right. Like the fast no on that. Answer. So do you want to sing? Look like you raised your hand. Oh, okay. All right. So there's a little video I put on our calendar for the song of the quadratic formula. It might be a way that you can get it memorized, because you do have to have it memorized. And do make sure you understand, as we are leaving the internet environment and coming to school more and more, your tests are going to be in class, right? So we'll be able to monitor you more and make sure that you have things memorized that you need to be having memorized. Just wanted to make that point. So make sure we understand these things as we move forward. So what's the opposite of B? What's the opposite of -3, everybody? 3. I'm going to go ahead and write it, though. The opposite of B is a -3, fumble. Plus or minus. Now, square root of B squared. That's -3 squared. Now I'm going to cover a common error here. I'm going to wait for the calculator to open because I don't care. We got the time. It does take a while to open, so let's all be patient as the computer takes forever. What I get sad about is students, when the B value is kind of large. All right, look this is my yesterday's notes. What happens when you type in -3 squared on your calculator? Boom. Is that what I put right here when I evaluate? Or what's a negative times a negative? Positive. It makes me infinitely sad when people put -B squared here and put a negative answer there, because they're a button pusher. They just believe the calculator, whatever it says. They're not even thinking that it's a negative times a negative. Okay, so please understand that and do not make that mistake. 4 times -2 times 9. This is all it is a formula where you stick numbers in the place where the letters they represent are. And then 2A. And then you'll see why we did what we did in the bell work. Equals 3 plus or minus 9. Now, here's another mistake. Minus. I'm going to leave this and then do this product. 4 times -2 is -8. -8 times 9 is -72. But it's minus -72. People lose this. They lose their minuses and don't deal with those appropriately. over negative 4. So be careful on that. Now I'm going to swing down here, equals. This is 3 plus or minus the square root of 81. What's the square root of 81, everybody? It's 9. Went too far. You double square rooted. You know what this means? This means this would have been factorable. You would have been able to factor this because we got nice little rational answers is the word that we should use for that. So we'll talk about that more. We have a day called the discriminates on Monday as well, how we discriminate between what type of solutions we might have because of the square root part. All right, but anyway, 3 plus 9 is 12. Let me put and. 3 minus 9 is negative 6. So the answers are negative 3 and 3/2. That's what the 2 0 solutions answers are. Because those are nice non-square root answers, this actually would have been factorable. We could have solved by factoring. So, all right, I think in the other class I only did one more. I think 4 examples of this is a little much. But also with the time that we have, I just want to get to this one. Okay, so same directions. I don't care what it says up there. We're going to just leave our answers in radical form today. Yeah. All right, what do I have to do first, though? Is this in the perfect order, or what do I have to do? Anyone? Come on. What's out on the answer? Yes? You have to subtract -9x. Yeah, or subtract 9x. Yeah, you did a double negative on that. You're right. In almost all cases, you got to get it equal to 0 for us to use it. So if it was factorable, we'd have to get it equal to 0. You know, and sometimes you had questions where there's a big mess. You had to get a whole bunch of stuff over on the other side. Exactly. All right, and then here's an idea. I'm going to talk about this on Monday. It's on the ed puzzle that I'm creating right now. It'll be done before the end of the day. I'll probably assign it today, just because in case you wanted to do it over the weekend instead of Monday. So, but it's definitely due by actually later in the week, by Wednesday, because my Monday people, I have to tell them about it. But anyway, MA. If I were going to look to factor this, M equals 36 and A equals -9. Now, where did I get that 36 from? For people that are still severely behind on factoring, 3 times 12, right? That's our M number, right? If I were going to try to factor this. Are there any numbers that multiply to 36 and then those same two numbers add to be -9? Is that even possible? Yes, no. Actually, no, because adding to -9, like -5 and -4 add to -9. But what's -5 times -4? How much is that? 20. And those are the biggest numbers that could get the highest product. So there is no numbers that that work for this. That means this is not factorable. NA means not applicable or whatever. So anyway, I'll write that as not factorable. And when it's not factorable, we need another way to get the solution. So what I'm doing is selling the quadratic formula. So that's why we need it. It is necessary. The opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. There you go. Some people looking at me like they hate me. That's fine. -9, 9. -9 squared, positive 81. Please don't be a button pushing screen copier. Right? -9 squared, -81. One of the saddest errors I see on these. Ooh, 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 12 is 144. What kind of number are we going to get on the inside there, folks? What kind of number are we going to get on the inside of that square root? Negative. What does that mean we're going to have on our answer? An I. Okay. So, I forgot. What's 81 minus 144? Oh, geez. I can't even think. What is it? Nice. Thank you. So 9 plus or minus the square root of negative 63 over 6. Isn't 63 9 times 7? So knowing your times tables is actually very valuable. How we break this down? Square root of negative 1, take out an I. Square root of 9, square root of 7. Product rule of radicals. Okay, and then 9 plus or minus 3 root 7 I all over 6. And then I'll highlight that for purposes of remembering. That's where the I came from. Somebody made it up. Square root of negatives shall now be called I. We don't have to know why. Somebody did it, and it is. Right? And then I numbers are actually very applicable in many things out in the real world. So that's all you need to know about. And then last but not least, the reduction. 3 over 2 plus or minus 1 over 2. And that would be the final answer for this. That's what x equals. Now, some things that we said about this, if we looked at the graph of this, first of all, the graph of this would be going up, and I guarantee you it would not cross the x-axis. It'd be something like this. That's where I numbers, that's what having I number zeros actually mean. It means the graph doesn't actually cross the x-axis, because remember, zeros are x-intercepts when you look at the picture, for intercept form. All right, so that is good.